And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara Podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Les Velez, author, podcaster, and U.S. Army veteran who has held positions in the Mutual UFO Network, such as field investigator, training coordinator, assistant California State Director, chairman of the Abduction Experiences Research Committee, and team leader of the Abduction Response Team. In 1994, he co-founded the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. Les, thank you so much for being my guest today, and welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, this is a great place to start because there may be people there that have no idea even what MUFON is. Can we at least start there and have you tell everybody what they are?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network. And it was started in 1969 by a couple of engineers from Seguin, Texas. And they have a worldwide organization. I think well over 4,000 people are members of the organization. And their main purpose is to basically investigate UFO cases. And more recently, they've also become more interested in understanding the abduction phenomena. In other words, contact with non-human intelligences, not just being a nuts and bolts type organization. And I had something to do with that many, many moons ago when I was the chairman of the AERC, the Abduction Experiencer Research Committee. And out of that committee came a report called the Omega-3 study, which we took 71 people that felt that they had been abducted and 51 people that were a control group, and compared the information through various instruments, psychological tests, and various other means. And the interesting part was that we found that these people did not have a psychopathology. They were not fantasy prone, and there was some differences in their temporal lobe activity from the control people and the experiencers. So the bottom line is that this organization has a rather extensive file on cases going back to the early beginnings of the organization, which people can actually go into and look at. It's called their CMS system. If anybody's interested in, becoming a field investigator and looking more into the UFO phenomena, that's the organization to join. That's I think about as much of the description at this point. But you can also go to their website, which is MUFON, MUFON.com. And they'll give you the whole rundown on the organization. There's chapters in all the states. And so if you're interested, you can contact the head of the chapter in that state and, go about either just becoming a journal member. They produce a monthly journal. Or if you, as I said, you want to become a field investigator, they have a test that you would take after getting their manual. Mm-hmm. that water I'm drinking, it must be something in it. But anyway, it's a very good organization, and like any organization, they've had ups and downs. But the bottom line is, I think that they've come out the other end of their time in being out there and doing what they're doing very well.
They must be a worldwide operation, because I've had the head of the Japanese MUFON group on as a guest.
Yes, right. Matter of fact, I heard about that, and he was actually came on to the ERT, as I mentioned, the Experiencer Resource Team that MUFON has now, which is an offshoot of what I started way back in 2007. Basically has a monthly meeting, and he presented at that meeting about two months ago. So yeah, we're very familiar with them.
Are they still based out of Seguin, or is that where their headquarters is?
No, they're actually in Cincinnati now. They've moved to a number of places, depending upon who is the international director. The international director right now is based in Cincinnati, so they moved everything there. Just prior to that, they were in Irvine, California. And prior to that, they were in Colorado.
That's too bad because Seguin's only about 30 miles down the road from me.
Yeah, no, that long gone.
All right. Well, you were mentioning about the omega-3 study and the findings. What are the psychological and physiological characteristics of alien contact?
Well, this is something that many books have been written about. These types of things. From the physical effects, you have lost or missing or compressed time. Audible tones that these people have before contact, sudden abnormal silence before feeling a presence. Nosebleeds are quite common in people. Unusual marks on the body, 3 dots in a triangular pattern, or a triangular pattern that almost looks like a brand that's impressed. And then there's scoop marks that people talk about. And then you have like surgical marks that heal abnormally fast. That they don't know where it came from, and they wake up and there's this slice in their leg or something, and they have no recollection of having bumped into anything or gotten close to a thorn bush or something like that. But the bottom line, it heals incredibly fast. There's implants that people talk about that show up on X-rays. I have no recollection of how they got there. And then one of the things, as far as the implants are concerned, and I want to read you something about that. The late Dr. Roger Lear did quite a bit of work on that, and these implants basically had no inflammatory rejection reaction by the body. So it's like people didn't recognize that they even had it in a lot of cases, but they had gotten an X-ray for something other than that, and then it showed up. No visible portal of entry is also a factor. Collections of specialized nerve endings that surround the object, an outer coating of ceramic biological material, a metallic phase where inorganic metal becomes biological tissue.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but while you're looking that up, what are the audible tones that a person would hear? Is it just ringing in your ears, or what?
Yes. Oftentimes it's a ringing, like tinnitus type of a situation, which in some cases it may be just that. However, many people go to an audiologist and find out that, well, they don't have tinnitus and their hearing is fine. And so it's a high-pitched tone that is often talked about. And as far as the implants, getting back to that, the emission of radio waves, which are deep space frequencies in the FM band, have been noted. Electromagnetic fields in excess of 10 milligauss. Composition of meteoric iron 66. Rare earth metals such as U-236, a single isotope of uranium, existing by itself, as well as elements such as uridium, which is very rare and hard to find in the Earth's crust. Non-terrestrial isotopic ratios indicating the involved elements did not come from Earth. The existence of carbon nanotubes and gold spheres, which have an unknown function. Dr. Lear had discovered this after having 17 people go under surgery, and they pulled these things out and had them analyzed. And he did a very, very thorough job in trying to analyze all that. Unfortunately, as I said, he passed away too soon. too soon.
That's true.
So,
as a field investigator, what have you personally seen?
well, I've certainly seen marks on the body. I've seen where people have actually felt like behind the ear, they felt a small lump. I think Whitley Strieber in his book Communion talks about that, that he noticed that. And then, these things move when people try to get them out. Dr. Lear even mentions that in one of his books, the Alien in the Scalpel, I think is the name of that book that he wrote. There's various things that show up. One of the cases back in the early mid 90s, I think it was, of people that come to one of the support group meetings was a couple, and they told about their experience. After their experience, they both came away with a rash, and they had gone to a doctor, and one doctor said, well, there's a lot of poison oak and poison ivy where you were, but this is not it, and I'm not sure what it is. And then they went to another doctor, and he did not know. He thought perhaps it was some reaction, allergic reaction. But they had taken a picture of it, and they showed the picture around to the group, and almost without exception, everyone in the group said at one time or another they had a similar rash. And one of the people in the group said that, I'm pretty sure I know what it is. And I said, what do you believe it is? And she says, well, it's a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in when they bring you on board the craft to sanitize you.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, it's an incredible phenomena, and further physical things, recurring headaches, eye and vision issues have occurred. And then, of course, talking about the ability to go through solid, walls and windows that are closed. It seems as if they're able to teleport people. So they're disassembling your molecules, your atoms, and being able to reassemble you on board the craft, and then when they bring you back, oftentimes they screw up, and you have somebody else's clothes on, or your own clothes are on backwards. I mean, all kinds of really strange things. Talking about being taken up in a beam of light. Lying on an exam table and being probed, of course, is a very common physical manifestation. And then for women, it's missing pregnancies, missing fetuses, out of body experiences, poltergeist activity, orbs. This phenomena is not just relegated to the grays or insectoids or reptilians or Nordics. It's quite complicated. Also, telepathic and psychic abilities are noted after these experiences, and even healing powers that people acquire. I was at the recent MUFON symposium in Las Vegas last July, and Robert Salas, Major retired, who was in charge of the missile base at Malmstrom Air Force Base, came over to me after I made a presentation to an experiencer group. And he and his wife were sitting and listening to my presentation, and came up afterwards and said, "Can I speak to you afterwards?" And I said, "Of course." So I had a table in the exhibitors area. I was talking about my book, The Unknown Other. And he started to tell me the story about he and his wife having been abducted, which was interesting. And the question I didn't ask him at the time, which I kicked myself in the butt over this, is the fact that did this happen before the events at the Maelstrom Air Force Base or afterwards? I had the feeling it was afterwards, but I didn't get a definitive answer on that. Make a long story short, his wife had the ability to heal people afterwards. And it's remarkable. It's remarkable. And you've had the opposite happening, where people that have cancerous conditions, Kathleen Martin talks about it in one of her books, where this orb went into a gentleman's body who had cancer, and he was cured after that incident. So there's people getting healed and people getting the ability to be healed. And I've actually experienced healing from one of the experiencers in our support group that Opus has, which is an online, totally confidential support group, which you can come into by contacting our website at opusnetwork.org, which is all over the back of my head here. So, you know, it's amazing. It's amazing. This guy did 2 sessions on me. I had a back issue, and within 2 sessions, I was fine. I was absolutely fine. And you know, he was up in Vancouver, and I'm here in Texas. So those are the kind of things that you know, blow your mind. I mean, psychic abilities, people being able to tell someone about their future, their past.
Do you think more abductions are happening while people are consciously awake, or while they're in the meditative or dream state?
That's a good question. Most of the time, people have. And we just finished a study going out to, a matter of fact, it's called the Omega-4 study. How clever of us to come up with that after the Omega-3. These people were mostly involved with grays in a state where some of them are absolutely conscious recollections of this, and then others after hypnotherapy find out that basically on a subconscious level that they had an experience, and so that would you would understand then that this is something that might have been in either a meditative state or while they were sleeping. So it's very difficult to say as far as what is it more of. It's a combination of all of those things. You have people driving down the road totally conscious, and then the next thing they know, they're 50 miles from where they were, and they have missing time. They have no idea how they got there. One of the cases that I got involved with, the same couple had gone on a picnic, and they were coming out of this state park, and they noticed this light over the ocean, and eventually this light got bigger and bigger and was over their head, and it was in a triangular form, and it was the size of a small Learjet. This happened a total of 7 more times, and they became frightened. And these things eventually disappeared, and they were coming out of the park. And as they were coming out of the park, that was the last thing they remember until 3 hours later, they were in a restaurant, which is only 5 to 10 minutes away from where they were. And they had no recollection of what had happened. And eventually we found out that, in fact, that they had been abducted. And they had this rash that they showed to the group. So it happens, it's very difficult to say if there's more of one kind or more of the other, but it happens in all different, possible, situations. Whether you're awake, whether you're asleep, whether you're meditating, they can take you anytime. anytime, anywhere.
Do you feel that most people's experiences are a positive or a negative thing?
Well, I think that based on a couple of studies that have been done, including our most recent phase 1 study of the omega-4, the free study indicated there was like 80% of people feel it's a positive experience. And then that remaining 20% had issues. And we found basically the same thing, that the majority of people feel it's a positive scenario. And then unfortunately, I think it's a case of, there's good people and bad people here on our plane, on the earth. And the same thing is going on up there. We have good ones, entities, and bad ones. And it's unfortunate that some people have had the bad luck of running into the bad ones. But and I've heard cases where it's not just non-human intelligences, if you will, but it could be poltergeist activity too. That's part of it, and demons. There was a case that came to our attention where a woman bought this house, and she kept seeing this young man, in spirit form, walking through the hallways in the house. And finally, she brought somebody in to, show him the light, and they were able to remove him and let him go to the light, and so that worked out. But then there was another entity that they could not remove, and this thing was leaving scratches on this woman's friend's body, and they finally found out through another person that had come in to try to remove it, that there was a ley line that was running through, under the house. And evidently it was running through a number of houses in that neighborhood. And all these people were having weird experiences. And they tried to sell the house, and they sold it. And then the person that bought it eventually sold it again. And it's like, it's not a house you want.
I wonder if they need to put that on the seller's disclosure.
Well, they're supposed to.
This house is on a ley line.
Well, I have my brother had, bought a house in Griswold, Connecticut, and it was a 1700 house, and they remodeled it, basically, brought it up to spec and everything, and did a beautiful job on it. It's a gorgeous colonial type house. And one day, my brother's wife, my sister-in-law, she was coming, up to the house with a couple of bags of groceries in her arms, and came up to the side door, and she thought my brother was sitting in this big wingback chair, and she yelled out, "Mark, please open the door." And nothing happened. "Mark, open the door." Nothing happened. Finally, she got mad, and she put the bags down, opened the door, then came in, and then she was going to read him the riot act. And she looked, and it wasn't Mark. It was this male ghost that was sitting in the chair. And evidently, they not only had a male ghost in this house, but a female ghost. And every time the ghost would show up, they would smell jasmine. And so there's other realities we just totally don't understand. And it's an incredible phenomena, no question about it.
Do you think most of the ETs and their ships are out there in space right now in our 3D realm and we can't see them? Or are they existing in the 5D realm or out of phase in another realm? Because some of my near-death experiencers happen to experience non-human intelligence on the other side.
I think, again, it's a combination of things. There was a doctor who tells a very interesting story that she was on a kayaking adventure down in South America, and she went over a falls and got trapped underneath the falls for over 30 minutes. And during that time, she saw these light beings, and this exuding this incredible amount of love. And she was so taken by the whole thing, she just wanted to go with them. And they told her, no, you can't go, you've got things to do. And then they also told her about the fact that her son, who was a little boy at the time, would pass away when he was 18 years old. And so she came out of this thing, no issues, no physical, no mental issues after this experience. And, she did not tell her son anything, of course. And then when he turned 18, he got into a car accident and died. But where I'm going with all this is, are these things extraterrestrial? Are they interdimensional? Are they time travelers? Are they our military? Well, I think it's all the above. And so I don't think you can just say it's one thing or the other. It's multiple things.
All right, you have Opus all over the wall behind you, and you've kind of mentioned it briefly. What is Opus again, and what is its mission? Yeah.
Opus stands for the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. We were founded with a doctor friend of mine back in 1994, and we are a nonprofit, 501c3, recognized by the IRS, which always cracks me up. And anyway, our mission, simply put, is to help people having paranormal experiences. Now, what does that mean? Are we talking about spiritual awakening, Kundalini experiences, poltergeist activity, UFO related activity, contact with non-human intelligence or extra humans, if you will? It's all the above. It's all the above. But as it's turned out, it's interesting that the majority of cases that come our way are involved with the contact with non-human intelligence. Now, what is that? People talking about the fact that they were in their room and these two grays came in, and the next thing they remember is they're on board a craft and laying on a table, and then standing next to them or besides the grays are a mantis type of a creature, and then farther back in the background is a Nordic, a more human looking, and the reason why they're called Nordics is simply because they're really have that Nordic look, and then sometimes there's the military people, uniformed people standing there, and so it's such a mixture of things that people talk about, and the bottom line is these people basically feel that they're going crazy initially. It is a traumatic experience. And a lot of them go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and find out that they're not crazy. So then what? What's the next step? And that's the problem. That's where the problem exists, that these people, most cases, do not know where to turn. And so that's what our mission basically is, to get the word out that we exist and we have tools to help these people. And the tool that's probably, without question, been the most effective is the online support group, which is, as I said, is totally confidential. The only way you get into it is you contact us, fill out a short form, and then we basically bring you into the group. You introduce yourself, you ask questions, you tell your story, and you understand the fact that you're not alone. There are other people having these experiences. And I think that's the thing that is mind-blowing. If you look at the Roper organization that did a poll back in the early 90s that was basically done by Robert Bigelow, and he funded the report, and then Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs brought it about. They were the instigators of putting this thing together, and they found out back then that there were supposedly 6 million people in the United States alone that have had these types of experiences. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
And now extrapolate that not only here in the United States, but it's a worldwide phenomenon. And then it's the year 2022. So how many more people? And so then you start to say, so why is that going on? What's the purpose of these abductions? And there's many theories about that. One, of course, is the fact that it's a means for these entities to eventually take over. It's a way for them to integrate in a way that's not starting a war, and coming down and with their ray guns and shooting everybody or doing anything like that. They don't need to do it that way. They can just. Then there's other cases where people talk about the fact, well, they're doing that to help themselves. They've got issues with their survival. And so this is a way for them to do that. But I think it's way more complicated. It's way more complicated than we can possibly understand. This Israeli general Haim Eshed talked about the fact that, hey, we're already dealing with the aliens. There's bases on the moon and Mars, and the aliens have said that they're not going to show themselves because humanity is not ready, and that may be the case. That may be the case. I tell you, when you start to go down this rabbit hole, it is mind-blowing. All the possibilities that are out there.
Now, have you had any personal sightings of UFOs or any personal paranormal experiences that led you to be involved in the Mutual UFO network?
Yeah, absolutely. I was 11 years old when this happened in the late 50s. And I was coming into the house. It was already getting dark, late October evening, and I saw this craft. It was not making any noise whatsoever, no sound. It was whitish in color. It was lit, but in this internal light, if you will. And it slowly was moving over a tree line, and it scared the hell out of me because I had no idea what it was. And I ran in the house, and by the time I convinced my father to come out, it was gone. And he said, "Oh, it's probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud." And so I didn't buy that. And I went to the library and started reading books by George Adamski, and at the time, who was the big, ufologist, if you will. And I just really, really got into it. But then, life got in the way. I went off to college, and then I was in the service, and then I got married, and had a couple of kids, and then I moved out to California. And in 1985, I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, and Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist, was going to talk about UFOs and a government cover-up. And it was like somebody threw a switch. And I got really excited. And I said, I got to go see this guy. And he was going to talk at San Jose City College. And that kind of impressed me right away. But I expected to see a handful of people only. And as it turned out, there was, the auditorium was full. And it must have been like 300 people there. And as I was walking out, MUFON had a table in the foyer, and they were talking about the journal that they produce on a monthly basis. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to start getting the journal. And after a while, though, that wasn't enough. It was like, okay, I got to do something more. And so I found out that you could take a field investigator examination. And if you passed, you'd become a field investigator. And then you would be tied up with a more professional or more seasoned field investigator to get your feet wet. And so I did. I got their manual and took the test and passed it, and then went out and started doing these cases. And as it turned out, the cases without exception, turned out to be not only sightings, but people were saying that they felt that they had been abducted. And so that really started the ball rolling for me, and it further got rolling when I was written up in the Monterey Coast Weekly paper, and in the article there was another woman that was written up in it, and she contacted me afterwards and said she'd like to understand what was happening with her brain waves when she was in contact with these entities. She was having telepathic communication. And so, well, I'm saying to myself, well, I'm not sure I can help this person. And then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And so I called my doctor friend, who was very interested in connecting with other doctors interested in the phenomena. And so we eventually set up a meeting for a Saturday afternoon, and we went down there. And as we walked into her home, there was a picture on the wall, and in the picture, she's standing on the back of this rather large vessel. And I said, what's this all about? And she says, oh, yeah, I was helping these treasure hunters find some treasure. I said, really? I said, how were you doing that? She says, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down here. So that kind of started the afternoon off. And so we went in there and sat down and had an unbelievable conversation. She ended up telling us so much about ourselves that there was no possible way that she could know that. And then we found out that this psychic ability that she had came about after a near-death experience. And so once again, here's another thing that gets involved with this phenomenon. There's so many parts of the puzzle that exist.
Yeah. I had a guest literally yesterday that she said during her near-death experience, she got a glimpse of heaven, and there were gray aliens there sitting next to humans.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting is the types of entities that people see. The grays seem to be like so common, and that all these other races of non-human, intelligences seem to utilize them almost like an iPhone. There must be a big store out there in the universe where they all pick up one of these things, because I think they are basically afraid of us in a way, because we're a violent civilization. I've had experiences tell me that they have bit these grays. One person even tore an arm off, supposedly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so it's.
Do you think it's possible that the grays are basically biological robots?
That seems to be the general feeling these days, that it's a biological robot of some sort, combination thereof. And one other story, real quick, that happened, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but during one of these sessions, a person told me that they had seen me before. And I said, really? I said, a UFO conference, a grocery store. Oh, no. I saw you on board a craft. I said, really? I said, that's interesting. And I kind of blew it off. Mm-hmm. And it was a year and a half, 2 years later, that another person said, I've seen you before. And I said the same thing, where, UFO conference, gas station, whatever. No. You were sitting on a bench naked on board this craft, and you were freaking out. And they told me to go over to you to calm you down. Well, at that point, I finally said, okay, I'm going to go get regressed and find out what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Well, I went to 3 different therapists and found out nothing related to UFO or alien type of abduction, but I had multiple past lives. And this is another factor that people talk about, that the aliens talk about, that there's reincarnation going on, and that people, your soul, that energy never dies, and it just goes out there and gets recycled, basically. I've come to feel more positive about that aspect of all of this as well. We don't have to worry about death, because it doesn't happen.
Can you update us on the latest news in UFOs?
Besides the UAP report that came out in this past June, there seems to be more happening. They've changed now the name of the office, and I can't remember what the heck it is. It's some long, crazy, 5-letter acronym for what they're doing. And the big question is whether or not they're actually going to be forthcoming with the information. There's some real questions about the fact that this may be something where it's going to go down some deep hole, and we're not going to get the results that we're expecting. The only thing that they've really come out with so far is the fact that, well, it's not the Russians, or it's not the Chinese, and it's not us, and so and we don't have evidence that it is the aliens, but they don't have evidence that it's not the aliens. And so there's so many sightings going on all over the world, landing marks, all kinds of physical evidence that points to the fact that these things are real. And that's only, part of it, because as you mentioned earlier, some of this stuff is ethereal, is interdimensional. It's something that you can't, put your hand on and feel it and touch it. It's just a different reality, a different realm. And so I think that, Lou Elizondo has kind of gone quiet these days. He's on hiatus, evidently, and I'm not sure why that is. I know he was supposed to come out with a book, and maybe that's what he's doing these days, spending time on that. This COVID thing, certainly was bad news, but for me, it was good news in the sense that, not that I had it, but it gave me an opportunity to write the book, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact, and which you can find on our Opus website, opusnetwork.org, and also on Amazon. All proceeds of the book go directly to Opus. And so, there's stories in there from our people in the support group, some of them just amazing stories. And I talk about the UAP report that the government came out with, and I talk about as I said earlier, the physical manifestations, the psychological manifestations. Talking about anxiety, fear of specific locations, flashbacks, sleep disturbances, phobias, depression, confusion, PTSD, all this stuff. In this recent book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, that George Knapp and Combe Keller came out with, they talk about these orbs entering bodies and people having negative effects and having, illnesses come about through this. So again, there's good orbs and I guess bad orbs that, you have to be careful. And certainly, coming near a UFO perhaps that's landed, there's radiation that's a factor, real, gamma rays, X-rays, all kinds of nasty microwave type energies. I talk about that in the book as well. There was a gentleman by the name of James McCampbell, who's a physicist from Cal Berkeley, and who wrote a great book on UFOs and the physical effects of this. And really, really a good book that people should try to get a hold of. Of course, it's very rare, and I think it's very expensive, but it's called Ufology. And James McCampbell is the author.
Are you afraid of UFOs and or aliens? And should the public be?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And I once worked with a conscious channeler, and I asked her if I would ever have an experience, and she said I would. And I said, well, should I be afraid of it, or should I, relish the opportunity and go on board? And she says, go with your gut, whatever you're feeling at that time. And I think that's a good way to think about it, because again, if you're conscious, you have a choice. If you're unconscious, it's you don't have much of a choice as to what's going to go on, whether you're afraid or not. But again, 80% of the people, or 70 to 80% anyway, feel that it's been a positive situation. So I guess in that regard, you would say that no, don't be afraid of it. However, if it's something that makes you afraid, then I would just, you have free will, and that you should be able to stop the situation by getting very angry, making sure that you don't have a curiosity about the situation and say, I don't want this to happen, and stop. And that's the way you have to think about it. Ann Druffel, who recently passed away as well, wrote a book, How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction. And in it, she talks about 9 different ways to stop the abduction that came about from people that had contacted her and told her that they were, successful in stopping these incursions into their life. So again, it's not a straightforward answer. It really depends. But for me, I think I would be curious enough to take it to the point. But I think now, knowing what I know, I would not want to get too close to these. If it landed in my backyard, I don't think I'd go up to it. I'd stay far enough away from it at this point. An entity, however, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Maybe, we could have a conversation, or a telepathic conversation of some sort.
There's a lot of trouble brewing up in Eastern Europe, and if it ever spiraled out of control into nuclear war, do you think the aliens would stop it?
Well, that's a good question. I would hope so. I would hope so. Their capability with they telegraphed to everybody at Maelstrom was that they were able to shut these missiles down. Other cases where they've actually blown them up in mid-flight has occurred, and it was photographed or on a video of it. I forget the gentleman's name who recently presented that information, so but then again, maybe it's something that's supposed to happen in a weird way that we don't understand. I would hope, just for you and I's sake, that it's something that doesn't occur, because if nuclear war happens, it's going to be an absolute disaster, and certainly going to get rid of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of some plan. Matter of fact, I'll tell you this interesting synchronicity, if you will. There was a Bulgarian clairvoyant by the name of Baba Ganya, I think her last name was, or that was her nickname, if you will. And she predicted a number of things, one of which was the Twin Towers coming down, and a number of other things. And she passed away in 1996. And one of the things that she predicted is that the Earth would be impacted by an asteroid in the year 2027, guided here by aliens.
Wow.
So anyway, the foreword of my book is written by Linda Moulton Howe, and And so I sent her that article that I read, I picked up, and this is how it actually started. I was looking at my phone and I saw this article come up and I read it, and that's what it was. And then she wrote me that morning and said, asked me if other members of our support group are talking about future disasters. And then I sent her that article. And then she sends me back a NASA article that was done in 2017 at a Tokyo conference. And it was called, basically said that an asteroid would impact the Earth in 2027. And it says exercise only on every page of this presentation, in great detail as to where it was going to come in, where it was going to hit, all this kind of information. And I thought that was just incredible that this synchronicity happened where I'm reading this thing and then she sends me it and it's talking about that, but it's only an exercise, folks. It's only an exercise.
What are your opinions about crop circles?
Well, I think those are just phenomenal. I mean, you just look at them and the complexity and how those things are laid down. And there's an energy that's happening. It's almost like a microwave energy of some sort that's utilized to cause the nodes in the grain to expand and blow up, and in some cases, and how it's woven together. I'm just remarkably surprised that more people haven't. It's not Doug and Dave going out there with a board and laying this stuff down. Mm-hmm. They're too complex.
Yeah.
And then if you look at what's going on, not only with the grain, but also in the earth. The earth has changed, and then these things will show up years later in the same area. The ghost of it, so to speak, of that particular pattern. So who's doing that? It's like some alien artist up there that's having a good time. Say, hey, look, this is a great field to do some work in, and they do it so quick, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I've got a number of books here about, crop circles, and I'm a true believer, folks. I don't think, and there are some that are fake. Yeah, right. There's no question about that. They're not all real. But the ones that are real, you can tell.
Well, Les, the time has just flown by. I mean, this is one of the fastest ones I think I've ever been through. And so before we get going, your book is called The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. Where can people find it?
Yeah, two places, basically on our website, which is opusnetwork.org. And then, of course, on Amazon. And so we appreciate y'all, your listeners getting that book. It's on Kindle as well. If you're a Kindle Prime member, it's free. $9.99, I think, for the regular Kindle, and then $20 for the book itself, paperback.
All right, you have the book out. Do you have anything else that you're working on that you want us to know about?
Well, as a matter of fact, the omega-4 study that we're in the process of doing, we just are finishing up the first phase, which is we've gone out to therapists that work with these people and did a short survey of what they found worked for them. And we've also now, the second phase is that we will go out to their clients and do a more extensive survey and different questions that we're asking this time. So a couple of things. One, we're always looking for more therapists to join our referral network, because that's the other thing that we do in Opus, is that we have a referral network of various types of therapists, whether it's hypnotherapists or mental health practitioners, things of that nature for people. And it's all free. We don't charge anything for that. I think the thing is that we just need to get the word out that there is an organization out there that is here to help people as best we can. Again, we're a nonprofit, so we always appreciate donations, whatever you can give to help the cause. And we just like to spread the word that we're here. We're here to help.
People may want to reach out to you and contact you, chit chat with you, or ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, how should they reach you?
Yeah, again, they can go through the website. There's an area there for the contact section. So you could just write right in there, and we will get the message, and we respond.
Okay. You also have a YouTube channel through your Opus Network, and I believe you do podcasts. Can you tell us how to find those?
Yeah. You would put in Opus Network as two separate words there, unlike our website. It's which is one word, opusnetwork.org. Yeah, just go to Opus, space network, and you should find some interviews that I've actually done of people like Linda Moulton Howe, Terry Lovelace. I think you might have had Terry Lovelace on your show.
I have.
Terry is actually on our advisory board, along with Linda Howe. Yvonne Smith is on our advisory board, and I did an interview with her. And Melinda Leslie is also on our advisory board, and did an interview with her. So that's what I'm trying to do. And we just did one with Geraldine Orozco, who is a phenomenal person. She's actual board member now of Opus. So yeah, we are just trying to build a network, so to speak, and give people a place to go to get the kind of help hopefully that they're looking for.
All right, Les, well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I think we are in contact already with our alien brethren, if you will. Some are positive in nature. They're more benevolent than malevolent, and then we do have others that are not so nice. But I think the majority are like 70 to 80% of the people that have had experiences are having good experiences. So don't be frightened. Come see us if you are, and know that you're not alone with the experiences that you're having. This is something that has been going on for eons.
Les, thank you for that message, and thank you again for being our guest today. I appreciate you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Jeff, and I appreciate being here today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.